Lead. It's a metal we try to avoid, but in the past people used lead for all kinds of things. You might know that the ancient Romans used lead to make their water pipes. That's where we get our word plumber, plumb line, and plumbing, because the Latin word for lead is plum dum. It also explains why lead symbol is Pb. Now the Romans didn't just use lead to make their pipes, they also used it in their makeup. People have been using cosmetics for thousands and thousands of years. Today, like in ancient times, if you wanted a certain color, you had to use a certain chemical. Now the chemicals have changed, but the cosmetics really haven't changed that much. So the ancient Egyptians used eyeliner. We use eyeliner. Today, we use lipstick. And back then, they might have used crushed berries to get this shade of pink or red. We wanted to cover up blemishes, so did they. Now today, we might use concealer that's maybe a little bit lighter, but mainly matches your skin tone, and we use foundation to really cover things up. Notice that our concealer and foundation, again, they match our skin tone, or they might be a little bit darker to give us that nice tan look or a healthy glow, because that's what's in right now. People want to look healthy and outdoorsy. That's the trend. That wasn't the trend back in ancient Roman times, and it wasn't the trend in the Elizabethan court. They wanted a completely different look. The look they were going for wasn't healthy glow, it was deathly pallor. And to achieve that, they used lead. Specifically, the lead they used was actually a mixture of two lead-containing compounds known collectively as white lead. Got a nice bright white powder here. Now, to get that ghostly appearance they were going for, they made a paste out of this stuff and just put it all over their face. That's where we get our term face paint. So imagine you've made this nice paint for your face, bright white color. And you can see that not only does it do a good job of giving you that deathly pallor, but it's concealing up all of my freckles. That's right, freckles back then were considered a blemish. So my freckle face would have been a fashion don't. Now you might be thinking, did she really just put all this lead compound and just smear it all over her face? Don't worry, this is a little bit too minty to be a lead compound. It's just toothpaste. And our white lead powder, it's actually just baking powder. Now the concern over why I'd have so much lead in my house goes back to what most people know about lead, that it's toxic. And that's true. There are lots of forms of lead and lead compounds that can be very harmful and even cause death. But as much harm as lead can cause, it really depends on what you've been exposed to and for how long. So if you've been exposed for a very long time, that would be chronic exposure, or let's say that you got a big dose of lead all at once. That would be an acute exposure. It also depends on how old you are. Kids are more affected by lead than adults are. Another thing that makes a big difference is, are you already sick? If you're healthy, you have a better chance of surviving an exposure. Now, lots of people know that lead is toxic, that it's bad for you. But how is it bad for you? That's what we're going to talk about next. There are actually several ways that lead can harm us, but one way is that it acts like a bully to other metals in our body. Our body actually needs a lot of metals in order to work properly. Calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, these are our friendly metals. Now a lot of these metals, our friendly metals, need rides. They need to be at certain places at certain times. They get those rides from proteins, very specific ones. So if everything's working right, our friendly metals get with the right protein at the right time, and it gets where it needs to go. So we've got our friendly metals that need rides to very specific places, and they get those from select proteins. But in our bodies, we have a completely different set of proteins that might actually need some of our friendly metals in order to do their job. Now, what happens when lead shows up? Well, that's when things go completely off the rails. How do things go off the rail? Well, remember, lead is a bully, so it just muscles in, and those proteins that were supposed to bind our friendly metals, they're stuck with lead now. And remember how our friendly metals needed a ride from specific proteins to get to certain places to do certain things? Well, those transport proteins are now full of lead, and there's simply no room for our friendly metals, so they're out of luck. Now, on a bigger scale, imagine what would happen. We've got all kinds of those transport proteins, and we've got all kinds of our proteins that need specific metals. Now, instead of being able to use the friendly metals, they're stuck with lead. So what you get is just lead coming in all over the place. It's going everywhere. All kinds of cells, different organs, even our bones. And pretty soon, there isn't a place where lead is not. And it's moving all over the body, doing things that it shouldn't do. It's also stopping things from happening that should. Where does that leave us? Well, lead is stopping things from happening in the body that should. And lead is now all over the place. So what we're left with is a disaster zone. Now, because lead can cause this type of havoc, we carefully regulate its use. But many of us depend on lead every day to get around. You see, a lead reaction is actually found in most standard car batteries. See, lead can be a part of our lives. It just shouldn't be in our bodies.